Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to pick number 20 in my look at my favorite power trio bands of all time, 31 Days of July. 31 of my favorite power trios. Three guys who conjured up lots of power, made lots of noise, showed off their virtuoso skills regardless of whether it was bass drums and guitar or bass drums and keyboards, or keyboards, guitar, drums, or whatever, right? Just three guys, at least for, a time period. Some of the bands I'm going to be talking about this month and have talked about already had periods where they were more than just a trio, a three-piece. But for me, I really kind of center on the trio, the power trio period, right? So today, we're going to look at a band who, the basic original trio only stayed together for the one album. They released the second album like about 4 years later, which wasn't quite as good, not nearly as good, expanded on the lineup and things like that. But for me, it was the debut that really did it. And yeah, God, this band should have been huge. Released April 24th, 1989 for Geffen Records, produced by Bob Rock. I'm talking about the self-titled debut from Blue Murder. And the trio is John Sykes on guitar and vocals, Tony Franklin on bass, fretless bass, and Carmine Appice on drums, the legendary Carmine Appice. I mean, this is a big, heavy-hitting album. It's a really interesting album when you think about it, because most of the guys here were coming off of pretty high-profile things. Obviously you had John Sykes, who was freshly out of Whitesnake, just a couple short, a year or so, year and a half before, something like that. Actually, probably about two. Because even though the Whitesnake 87 album came out in 87, he was already out of the band by the time the album hit the shelves. So literally this album for him was kind of like 2 years in the making. You had Carmine, who had done stuff throughout the 80s with his band King Cobra, and he played with Ozzy. You had Tony Franklin, who does all sorts of stuff, but he was with the Firm for a couple of years. So, three guys who had done a lot. And let's not even talk, Sykes also was with Thin Lizzy and Tigers of Pantang, right? So Sykes was very busy throughout this decade. And I remember the first day I heard this, and I was like, wow, this is not all that much different than the vibe of the Whitesnake 87 album, which, was at the time was one of my favorite albums, right? And no doubt owing a lot to the fact that Sykes co-wrote that entire album with David Coverdale. So a very similar feel here. You got all sorts of great big anthems, Riot, Sex Child, The Wonderful Valley of the Kings, big and epic, the fun kind of, funky Jelly Roll. You got the screaming title track, Blue Murder. You got the ballad Out of Love, the fun Billy, the big, heavy, grinding Ptolemy, and then, of course, the raging, fast-paced, black-hearted Woman. Sykes' riffs and solos are all over this album. Franklin and Appice are just absolutely thundering on here. I mean, these, shame I never got to see these guys play. It's like one of my, I think everybody has those kind of concert regrets, those bands that you would have loved to have seen and did play live, and you had opportunities, but you just never happened for you. And 1989 and into 1990, when these guys were out touring some stuff, it was a weird time in my life. I was fairly freshly out of college. I was living on Long Island with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and then by late 89 our relationship had crumbled apart, and I moved back with my parents for a brief little bit, and I really wasn't going to see many concerts in the mid to late 1989 and 1990. So I kind of, even though I was really into this album and listened to it plenty, I really wasn't going to see much shows right around that year. That was kind of a tough year. It wasn't until mid 1990 or so that I kind of got my mojo back a little bit and got back into the swing of things. And by then, Blue Murder is kind of like a non-entity already, and it took them 4 years to put together a follow-up. You had Sykes, of course, at the helm. You had Tony and Carmine recording some stuff for the album, but you had other players on there as well. Magic really wasn't there anymore. So this, to me, is the one. Nothing but trouble. It's got its moments, but it pales in comparison to this. But yeah, this is a power trio that I think it's just a real shame they didn't do more. And they really could have been a force on the heavy rock music scene. Again, maybe they came a little bit too late also, because by 89, 90 already things are starting to change out there in the world, right? As far as hard and heavy music, you got the Seattle scene just ready to burst at the seams shortly thereafter, and I almost wonder if Blue Murder had come, so let's say the Whitesnake album comes out in 87. He's already out of Whitesnake. If he comes back with this album in late 87 or early 88, things could be a little bit different. I think this might have taken off a little bit more, and if they would have followed it up with another album quickly, who knows? There's just enough time. I think, for Blue Murder to strike rich. I always say the same thing about Badlands and Blue Murder. I think both of those bands were just like, they kind of hit just a little bit too late for sustained success. And I think if both of those bands came out a year or two before, we may be looking back on both the careers of Blue Murder and Badlands in a little bit different light. But anyway, that's my power trio for today. Blue Murder, they're screaming. Blue Murder. Self-titled, Carmine Apiece, Tony Franklin, and John Sykes. Let us know what you think of the Murder Boys down in the comments below, and also your pick, your number 20 for today. Stay tuned for number 19 coming up tomorrow. And what else we got coming up tonight? We've got the In the Prog Seat. All right, that's happening tonight. We're going to be talking about our favorite drummers. Have a couple special guests lined up as well. If you're familiar with the Prog Report, got a couple gentlemen from the Prog Report sitting in with the Prog Seat folks tonight. So we're going to be talking about our favorite drummers. And all sorts of other stuff happening this week. We've got new album review day tomorrow. It's what's hot with Sea Tranquility Day. Hoping to get a couple new ones for you. All sorts of stuff happening this week. Got the Monsters Den on Thursday. We're going to be ranking the Underworld film franchise. And then, of course, Martin Popoff and I will be back at the Funhouse talking about some of our favorite stars who we feel have had the best solo careers. So guys who were originally in, fairly big notable bands and either left that band or bands to do a solo career from then on in and just knocked it out of the park, or who even somehow fit in really good solo careers around working with their main band. So that's coming up on Friday. And then, of course, album homework assignment on Sunday. Saturday is the UK Connection with Simon Bray and Stephen Ree. We're going to be talking about our favorite and least favorite Deep Purple albums. So lots happening this week. And then, there's album homeworks. There's album ranking shows in the pipeline. Going to be doing All Them Witches, Hollis, and Joe Bonamassa, and a couple other things. We got Derek Shirini and all sorts of stuff in the works that you'll be seeing in the upcoming weeks. So stay tuned for that. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell. Also down below is the link to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as the link to our merch page where you can get all sorts of cool Sea of Tranquility stuff. So thanks everybody for watching. I'm Pete Pardo. See you tomorrow morning with another of my Power Trio favorites. Take care. Bye-bye.